Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Conquer the Clutter podcast for August the 30th. I hate to see the summer go, but we shall be grateful for the fact that at this point in time, we don't live in Florida. So let's be grateful for what we have, not what we don't for the time being anyway. We can work on the rest for sure. So, for those of you who are new, I'm Elaine Birchall. I'm the podcast host, and my specialty is helping people get unstuck. And that can involve clutter. It can even extend to hoarding disorder, or it can be other life events that pile up and overwhelm us. Lots of ways to get stuck, lots of things to take the place of clutter, but they clutter our lives, they clutter our minds, and they wear us down. So let's just work on peeling those off, identifying them first, and moving forward in ways that are important to you. One of the basic ways that we need in order to move forward, no matter what the issue is in our life, is self-esteem. So I chose to make, and self-esteem is one of those things that moves up and down the range. All right. So it can be variable. So truthfully, what actually creates self-esteem? And the truth is that the very best way to develop healthy self-esteem is to come from a family where parents modeled self-esteem to us as children. And they did it by consistently demonstrating love in certain forms. One of those forms was being interested in our life and our friends, how we were doing, what we thought, how we felt, giving us time, their time. There's nothing that makes a person feel more important, even as an adult, than someone giving you authentic, true time. And encouragement, all right? Being clear, being reasonable, being consistent. Consistent is huge. Being supportive in whatever ways were most important to us that we needed the most. And encouraging. Because quite often, not just as children, but as adults as well, we find ourselves having to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and start again. All right. And one of the biggest gifts that parents can give us, or that primary attachment figure, even if it wasn't a parent, could be a teacher. All right. Is helping us develop, yes, you can, all right, beliefs. And we do that by having individuals who are important to us, who we have faith in, we got our eye on them, we're watching them, we're looking to them, setting high enough standards and expectations, all right? And also, whether we're children or we're friends, that's having discipline set for us that is appropriate. Adult discipline, all right, sounds like we're just talking about kids. We're not, all right? Because adult discipline has a different name. It's called boundaries and limits. So, what shape are your personal boundaries and limits in? All right? As parents, being democratic and respecting that the child, even though they are only partially developed, or gosh, even as adults on a bad day, we're only partially developed, all right, that we have opinions, remaining considerate and respectful. Considerate doesn't mean that we agree. Considerate means that even as adults, we're talking about children right now and developing self-esteem, but you're going to learn a little later on in this podcast, we don't just learn self-esteem. We don't just develop or repair self-esteem as children. This is an ongoing job for us, right? Sometimes life, sometimes people Sometimes our mental and physical health exact a price, all right? And we find ourselves needing to heal. So remaining considerate and respectful to one another. But every single thing I'm saying, please know it is something we need to give ourselves as well. How considerate and respectful are you of yourself today? All right. Taking responsibility for making the parents, as children, they provided a safe environment by being willing to take responsibility for making those final decisions. Because children, as children, we thought we did, but we did not have the life experience really to keep ourselves safe and on track. You never would have convinced us of that at the time, right? And as we became teenagers, all the more so. All right. But parents who generated self-esteem in us, all right, took that responsibility and they made those final decisions based on their adult life experience. And while they did that, communicated trust in us as their child. All of these things I'm talking about are still things that we need to do today for ourselves, with and for others who are most important to us. This isn't just about then, it's also about now. Guiding and setting limits, all right? Expecting the best of the child. Are you expecting the best of yourself? Are you expecting the best of others who you allow into your inner circle? Right. Believing and valuing each other. Having no favorites. Just because there were other children in the family didn't mean that there were favorites, all right? Just now in your families, in your social networks, there are no favorites, right? However, it's an interesting contradiction. I've just given you, the gospel on how children can be taught and modeled self-esteem, how maybe that's where we got our first dose of what it felt like to have some level of self-esteem, growing self-esteem. It's an interesting contradiction. Despite the fact that those are the guidelines, and that's the safest, easiest, surest way to have self-esteem generated in us, healthy self-esteem. It's amazing that there are still people who grow up with none of those parenting skills, and yet they still have self-esteem. How does that happen? All right. And to the extent that that is true, and it is, there must be a way for us who didn't have parents who were that perfect, right, who didn't demonstrate those characteristics, who didn't help us develop the and promote self-esteem. There must be a way for us to do it anyway, because there are many, many, many people who had, to a large extent, exactly the opposite. Experiences children should never have been exposed to. Parents who were authoritarian, parents who were narcissistic, parents who were permissive and wanted to be their buddy rather than their guidepost. All right? Many people had those kinds of parents, and yet they've still managed to develop a pretty healthy dose of self-esteem. The most obvious way to develop self-esteem anyway, all right, but there's a caveat, there's a big question mark over this, would be for us, and how many of us do this? How many of us value ourselves based on what we do, what we perform, what we consider our personal skills and talents, and how we demonstrate those? And yes, even though we may sometimes not be in touch with our skills, abilities, talents, we still do have those skills, those personal skills and talents. All right. How many people here can honestly say you haven't checked in with those recently? And for those people who are feeling particularly vulnerable today, how true is that? All right. The question is, are we aware? And are we willing and able to acknowledge and use our skills, talents, and abilities? So get your pens and papers handy. The first question I want to pose to you, because I really don't want this podcast just to be a listening exercise. I really want every single one of you to come out of every single podcast with something that you can chew on. All right. So the first question I want to pose is, when was the last time you did a personal inventory of your personal skills, which are different from abilities, which are different from talents? Every single one of us have them. All right. When is the last time you gave yourself legitimate, like fact-based, evidence-based credit for having the skills, talents, and abilities you do have? So your paper and pen, have it handy, all right? Because I want to ask you right now to, on a paper, draw 3 columns. Got it? And in column 1, I want you to write down 3 of your strongest skills. Now, skills are not the same thing as talents necessarily. They could be, but they're not necessarily. The thing about a skill is you've had to work at it. Whatever little seed you had of ability, all right, or talent, you had to work at it. You had to develop, all right, a skill. Now, in column 2, write down 3 of your strongest abilities. Different, maybe abilities are the basis of a skill, but they're not the same thing. Abilities are something that you have you always had. You put your hand to it and it was like a duck to water. All right. You've always had these abilities in some way, in some form. But for them to be included or part of, or the foundation for a skill, you had to become competent. Skills are competencies. Talents and abilities. Talents are, I was born with it. I don't know. I've just always been good at that. And in the 3rd column, I want you to write down those strongest talents. So we've got skills, we've got abilities, had to work for, and we've now got talents. Talents are, you came out with these abilities. I'm sorry, I'm confusing you. You came out with these talents. Always had them. They're innate. All right. And whether you have actually increased their ability, their degree, maybe you've developed them a little further, you recognize you're born with them. An example of that would be something like being born with a really great singing voice. That would be an ability. All right. All right. and then you made an effort. Sorry, that would be a talent. Then you made an effort to further develop it, increase your range, for instance. That might be an ability. The degree to which you really, really worked at it and it became a skill, that's the difference. Now, 3 of your strongest talents. What would be 3 of your strongest talents? 3 of the things that you were probably born with. What are those? Okay. Now, beside each of those 3 things, skills, talents, abilities, all right, I want you to write down, just ballpark it. When was the last time you actually acknowledged each of those things to yourself? Because if you don't acknowledge them, they kind of go dormant. You lose track of them. And on a bad day, the one thing, when nothing is going right, you can't make it work for love nor money, all right? And you're not feeling good about yourself. You need to stay, if ever you needed a time to stay in touch with innately what you have a talent for, what you legitimately have an ability to do. And maybe even some of those have become skills. All right. You need to acknowledge to yourself that you have these characteristics, because these are the foundation. These are the foundation for your awareness of evidence that this may not be working, but this is something that I can count on. All right. Now, I asked you to write down a ballpark of when you last even allowed yourself to acknowledge them by being aware. Now, next question. When did you actually last draw upon them? When did you actually haul those out? Use them? Sometimes when you're not feeling good about yourself, nothing seems to be going right. All right. Sometimes it's a really good idea to put that job down and go and do something you're really good at. It's important. It's important to remind yourself of the skills, talents, and abilities you have. And give yourself credit. Maybe I can't do this right now, but I can do this. And when you are accessing, acknowledging, giving yourself credit for skills, talents, and abilities you know you have, they're right in front of you. The evidence of it is right in front of you. That should give you hope that you weren't always that good at it. Yes, you may have had a talent, an innate talent, all right? But you weren't always as good as you are today at it. And what that actually means is maybe today I'm not managing this thing well, but if I can do this other, I can darn well do that. And I know that I hate to keep bringing up Uganda, but you know what? Even at my age, okay, and I'm not 16, I'm not even formative anymore, all right? That trekking in Uganda, anytime I can't do, and I'm not Superwoman, believe me. You and I are the same in many ways, all right? Anytime I'm facing something and it's defeating me, I'm not getting the real hold on it, I remind myself, at my age, in my condition, all right, I trekked. mountainous terrain with the help I needed. I trekked it and I did it. And there were thousands of times. When you see that video that Braden's preparing for you, there's a scene I want you to look for. All right. And it's the scene of me all dressed in black at the base of what looks like a green wall. All right. And I look like murder. I look like I would like to get my hands around somebody's throat. He's going to have to cut that out in this video, but I wanted in this podcast, but I wanted to tell you that. In fact, I have been quoted, and he tells me he's not cutting it out, where I'm looking at having to basically rappel up 500 meters. Do you know how high 500 meters is? Through underbrush, holding on to vines, holding on to roots, straight up through the bush. All right, no roads, no nothing. And I'm at the bottom of that precipice. And I'm that right now, and it took such restraint, I can't even tell you, you'll see it on my face, said, right now I'd like to kill somebody. Who thought this was a good idea at the end of what was probably, gosh, a 15-mile trek? And we've got to do 15 miles out. And I'm at the bottom of this, and I'm going to rappel up a 500-meter wall. Hello. But you know what? I set a limit. And I say, and I said it out loud so that you could hear it, so that you can be guided by that. If I can do it, you can do it. All right. And I said, this may take a while. This is going to happen come hell or high water. And it's going to happen at maybe no more than 5 feet at a time. So hold on to your hats. All right. And I did it. I thought I'd die, but I did it. And so when we take on things that we know if we break it down, we can do it. That then is a basis for strength later. All right. Can't tell you how many times since then I've said to myself, if you could do that, you can do this. What do you need? Where is it? And how do you get enough of it to make enough of a difference? Go do it. Do it in your own way. Do it in your own time. I wouldn't have believed I could necessarily do that before. Self-esteem and self-confidence get born of getting beaten by life, and in small, doable, incremental steps in about things that are important to you, doing it anyway. All right, doing it anyway. All right, so when was the last time you gave yourself credit for what you have accomplished? The reason I want you to do this is because it's just too easy. It's too familiar a place to go to, and we empty ourselves when we do it by going to that place inside ourselves where we tell ourselves what we can't do or what we've done wrong. And then in a self-defeating, derogatory way, make it about consistently what's wrong with us. Or worse yet, what's wrong with somebody else. Like we can really change that. All right. Another common way we depend on to let ourselves feel good about ourselves, which I want you to keep an eye out for, is how we are accepted by others. Anybody here a people pleaser? There's nothing wrong with this necessarily, unless we make it our most frequent way to experience our self-esteem. Our self-esteem is not through the eyes of others. The word, it starts with self. The reason the word starts with self is because we are the focus. We are generating it. It's not a reflective glory. If our self-esteem can fluctuate, and it does, all right, that's a good thing. Every day you don't feel the same way about yourself and your abilities, that's actually a good thing, because that proves that our self-esteem can change. So let's start looking at what self-esteem actually is. All right, we've talked about the easiest way to get it. We've put out a few guide wires there so that we don't end up in a danger zone. What is self-esteem and how does it work? Well, research, if that's what we want to use, thinks of it as being stable. All right, so it's always there, all right, in some way, shape, or form. But we all know, every single person here knows, that it usually fluctuates based on our thoughts, our physical and mental health, our attitudes about things, like our appearance. We're having a bad hair day. All right. We tried something and it didn't work. Our relationships with others, especially our primary relationships. Self-esteem basically is a realistic appreciation of oneself. It's not conceit. Realistic means that our opinions are accurate and they're honest. And appreciative is all about allowing the positive feelings, never mind what's going wrong. Amid that, there are positive feelings, all right? But those positive feelings are definitely not about being competitive or comparing or allowing ourselves to be treated in that way, that somehow, yes, you're wonderful because you've outperformed, you've done that, you've done whatever. And we certainly really need to nip it in the bud if we find ourselves being competitive or feeling good about ourselves in comparison to someone else. All right. And the reason I want you to keep an eye out for that, feels good in the moment. Feels like a dead certainty, actually, but it's not, because that there's always the next guy. All right. Compared to Albert Einstein, I don't rate that well. Compared to somebody else, maybe I do. What does that mean exactly? That means every time I come in contact with an Einstein, I'm going to feel that big. And does it also mean that in order to feel good about myself, I have to compare myself to others and find them deficient? That would be a real temptation, right? When we act or we allow others to act toward us in a competitive, comparative fashion, it's only leading to self-defeating shame in one context and pride in another. And we've all met these kinds of people. And heaven forbid, perhaps on our worst days, we've been one of these people. Okay, keep your eye out for it. It is not your best self. It is not a safe, good, healthy place to be. Working from self-defeating pride, all right, trying to be superhuman, getting it all done perfectly. But doesn't that also mean that if that's our measure, on the days that doesn't happen, we can't make that happen? Doesn't that also mean that we don't count? We as a person, we as a worthy individual, we don't count, all right? So those days when we're feeling pretty chuffed with ourselves, and we're not talking about realistic, observable accomplishment, we're talking about in comparison, all right? That perfection that we create, even if we happen to do it ever, all right? If we're aiming for it, and maybe it happens for an instant, we create it, all right? Do you frequently compare yourself based on your performance compared to others? When you find yourself leaning that way, remember, this type of pride is a recipe for self-defeating, because it only demonstrates our insecurity. Why do we need, and that is not a good place to settle for, okay? When we feel ourselves feeling this or doing this, the best plan, people, is nip that in the bud. Nip it in the bud. You stand alone, all right? And remember, and sometimes it's hard to remind ourselves of this. Despite your performance, good, bad, or indifferent, you're already good enough. You're already good enough, because self-esteem is knowing and accepting our faults and our limitations, temporary as they may be situational. Some situations we're not going to pull it off. We still matter. We still matter as much as the days when we aced it. All right? We're still okay. We still have every legitimate right to be grateful, to be who we are. Who we are. Complete with our talents, our skills, our abilities. Even if we don't make a habit of checking in with them and reminding ourselves frequently, and wait for it, yes, sirree, our untapped potential, our ability to continue to grow and improve in ways that are important to us. It's going to take work. Working hard is okay. It doesn't mean because it's hard that you aren't worthy, that you don't have that ability, that that thing can't become a skill. And all the while, on the days when you're acing it, you feel like nothing can go wrong. Know that you as an individual, as a person, still have imperfections, and that's okay. That's okay, because we're not limited by our imperfections. We can accept others and we can accept ourselves as equals, different, but equal. Being grateful for what we have, being grateful for who we are, as imperfect as that is. Why? Because of the work we've done to get there. It isn't the level you reach, it's the work you do to get there. Being brave. Facing the possibility you're not going to ace it. All right? And humble. Humble is a really great skill to develop. Humble and brave enough to face the truths in our life and move beyond the challenges. Now, on that paper, write down, if you will, please, today, 3 challenges that you're facing this week, because we all have them. Three challenges. And as you write those down, I want you to start thinking, okay, how you're going to gradually grow and improve and move forward. And it probably will be with hard-earned self-worth and humility with respect to those 3 challenges. Do any of the skills, talents, and abilities that you listed in those columns above, are any of those going to be useful to those challenges? Or, as I found in Uganda at the bottom of that 500-meter precipice, maybe just getting in touch with your healthy dose of Irish stubbornness. And that doesn't always come off as a skill, talent, or ability, people. All right? But it sure came in handy there. And do you know what I heard at the bottom of that, even though I was madder than a bag of rattlesnakes? All right. Do you know what I heard? I heard my mother's voice. And I heard my mother's voice say, anything you set your mind to, it's the setting your mind to it, Elaine. Anything you set your mind to, you can do. Because if you can imagine it, you can do it. You might not be able to do it in one step, but you can do it. If you don't imagine things, if they're not in your wheelhouse, probably they're not in your wheelhouse because maybe you don't have the talents or the skills or the abilities, or maybe you don't have the drive. Maybe those things aren't important. But if you can imagine it, you can do it. All right. The whole basis of self-esteem is acceptance. It's probably one of the hardest parts too. Self-acceptance, write this down because you're going to need it for those challenges. Self-acceptance is believing in ourselves, even with our imperfections, and still being determined to improve. I did not say succeed in one step. I said improve gradually. Okay. Now you've got your 3 challenges for this week. In one of those columns, probably in the skill column, write down 3 things that you'd actually like to improve on, even a little bit this upcoming week. And the reason I want you to do it in the skills column is you didn't get those skills. You weren't born with those skills. You had to work for those. So you will be drawing on probably the same parts of yourself that allowed you to call that a skill. You already have the ability. You've demonstrated it in the skills above. Even if those activities have nothing to do with one another, you already have it inside yourself. And it's called, when you look at your skills, it's called self-confidence. It's not conceit. It's not perfect. It's developed by believing in our abilities and our proven, demonstrated competencies to be the basis, the starting point for the ways we want to improve and make progress. As our competency increases, then also allowing ourselves to believe in us as a person, in you as a person, believing in yourself. At the bottom of that 500-meter precipice, boy, I tell you, believe was the word. No matter what, I'm going up that. Now, I'm not going up it like a rappeller. I'm not going up it like an Olympic athlete. All right. I'm going up it with a plan. I'm going up it with what I need. Where is it? How do I get enough of it? You know what that translated to? And this has got nothing to Uganda, got nothing to do with it. It's got to do with you and the challenges you're going to face this week and the things you want to improve. I said to one of my porters, don't pull me, and there shall be no pushing from behind. All right. We didn't want to capture that on film. And I said, I want to watch where you put your foot. And remember, I am 5'2". You are 6'2". All right. So small steps would be greatly appreciated. Because when your foot holds, I know my foot will hold. And you're going to watch my left side because I have a high risk of breaking my left ankle again. I've broken it twice in the last 7 years. I've been warned about it. I had the right footwear. I had the right brace on it, kind of the wrap on it. Okay. It's not about Uganda. This is about what do you need? Did I go in there looking like Marilyn Monroe? No, I did not. And I didn't come out looking like Marilyn Monroe either. I came out there looking like a dead dog. But I did it. And I asked for what I needed. And I put my foot where his foot was. All right. And I grabbed the root where the last person had, because I knew that would hold. And I went up that 500 meters straight up through the bush. All right. 2 feet at a time. All right. And I will never forget that till my dying day, as this thing in front of you that you need to do, Elaine. All you need to do is figure out, what do I need? Where is it? And how do I get enough of it to make enough of a difference that I can chunk this down and do a pretty reasonable facsimile of success at the end? What do you need to do? All right. You need to start with, if you weren't blessed with Irish stubbornness, a sense of, I can do it. I can. Okay. Not like an Olympic athlete, not like the best in the field of whatever activity you're engaged in, but don't enter the danger zone. And the danger zone is only feeling okay about yourself. All right. When we demonstrate perfect competence, perfect achievement, that's the danger zone. There is no part of going up that 500-meter wall that had anything to do with perfect anything. All right. And the reason we want to stay away from that danger zone of only feeling okay when we demonstrate perfect competence and perfect achievement is because if we fail, if we don't manage it that time, guess what? The obvious conclusion to make about ourselves is, all together now, we have no worth. Because the effort, the determination, the persistence, persist, doesn't count. Okay. Then we start looking at things like our status. Okay. Our status. What else? That external thing. What else will give us a sense of feeling okay? We're in an entirely different neighborhood as far as worth when we're measuring things by our appearance, our financial status, our jobs, our family, who we know, all right, who we married. All we're measuring then is our market worth or our social worth. We are not for sale. This is not a market. All right. Our worth as a person is complete and unchanging. Our fundamental worth is complete and unchanging. No matter what I look like in that video, I can look like I got dragged through a knothole backwards. All right? Doesn't matter. It's that you set a goal, those 3 things you want to accomplish this week, and you did a pretty close facsimile of what you thought you wanted to accomplish. Our self-worth is stable in that it's always there. Don't ever let it be reduced if someone rejects you. And for heaven's sakes, don't be the person who rejects you. Our worth doesn't have to be earned or proved. It's there. It already exists from the moment of our birth. That's why each and every one of us contributed to those babies in Uganda. Their worth as little people matter. Having equal access to the basics of life like oxygen matter. Having a fair kick at the can matters. All right? All that remains for each of us today to do is to just recognize. Please take the time today to look at those lists, make them meaningful to you, make them work for you, all right? And accept and appreciate all of the things you've written down today. Each person is complete in the sense that each of us comes into this world with every attribute that's needed for what we are meant to do in this world, all right? Our gifts, our attributes, and today I want to invite you to accept what has always been true. You come every week and you're looking for something. All right, fair enough. That's about progress. It isn't that you're deficient. It isn't that you're inadequate. It isn't that there's anything, and I don't care how you hoard or how you don't. All right, it isn't that you are insufficient. And that has been true from the moment of your birth. Perhaps each of us just isn't seeing what's already there and available. And it's available to us to use for the life we want. Wouldn't it be a pity to spend our life approaching opportunities, whatever they are, that are important to us? And they'll be different for each of the people here today. Our opportunities, what's in our future is different, right? Wouldn't it be a pity to approach it with a blind eye to what's already there right now, always has been, what's true, what's available? Because we didn't acknowledge and accept our intrinsic worth. We didn't reach our true desires, our true destinies, accomplishments, goals, which, make no mistake about it, they're going to involve effort. This is not a seamless, I sail through this. This is, I was worth making the effort. I was worth exacting the cost to have what I most wanted. My invitation to each and every one of you here today, okay, is that we this week start to devote the effort to meeting ourselves. Not the part we're not happy about, we just change the part we're not happy about, but to actually meet ourselves. Maybe for the first time in a long time. You check the dates there. When was the last time you acknowledged that you had that skill, ability, or talent? When was the actual last time you used it? And even if it's got nothing to do with what you want to improve on, how you got there is how you'll get to the next place. You've already got it. All right? So if you haven't used the part of yourself that is the overcomer for the first time in a long time, all right, know that every one of those skills, talents, and abilities is tangible evidence that you can, because it's not that you're worthy and capable because you did. No, you were already worthy and capable. That's just the proof of the pudding. All right? You've always been. And that part of you that you don't meet often enough in yourself is right there waiting for you. Is right there waiting for you. Now, one last little job. On that paper, can you name? Can you give it a name? That part of you that has always been there. And it's waiting for you. All it needs is for you to acknowledge and accept. I'm here. I'm waiting. What would you name it? Because when you name something, it can't disappear. Sorry. It can't disappear on you. Can you write it down? Can you come up with either a descriptive name for what it is, or just give it a name? Just give it a name. Remain aware of what our losses have been and acknowledge them. Try really, really hard that isn't the first thing you remind yourself of. And that's true for everybody. All right? Because what chemistry are you sending to your brain as food to get you to where you want to be? And it isn't the negatives. All right? It's the serotonin, it's the dopamine, it's the hard work and overcame. That's the chemistry we need in our brain to move forward. The other is also true. You don't want to be a Pollyanna, but don't make it about this is what's happened, so that's why I can't. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.